Right, Nez, let's continue on the Spurs chart, and let's take it just a few days ago after that Villa defeat. Antonio Conte in his press conference, as you mentioned briefly earlier, was saying that fifth is maybe the maximum they can do because they're basically saying they're not very good. I mean, from himself. Clearly not happy with the board, saying that I told them that we had to invest, I told them that we had to spend more money. Look at the others, they spend money, like they have a bazooka, we have like a small water pistol or whatever he said, something like that. I quite like the bazooka image. I understand in a way what he's saying. Before we get critical on Conte, because we have to.
You understand or you agree?
No, I understand that he says that there's a point where if you want to compete or catch up with the others in the Premier League, the top six, who spend money, who spend money, not always wisely, but spend money, you also need to spend.
Yes.
That's fair.
Yes.
Arsenal had to say to their owner, listen, if you don't spend, we're never gonna do it. We're never gonna make it.
Yeah.
Spurs have spent money though. They've spent money last summer. They bought Romero for 50 million. They bought Richarlison for 50 million. They bought Kulusevski for 30. They bought Bentancur for 30. They bought Jed Spence, even if they don't use him. They bought him. So Perisic is on a free, but it's big wages. Yeah. So they've invested money. Clearly not as much as he wanted. And that's where I'm like, okay, Antonio, but it's not like if you didn't get any backup whatsoever. You got some backup. You got some money invested.
Yeah.
I think that the response from Daniel Levy right now would be like, hang on, I understand. I hear what you're saying, but we backed you up already.
Yeah.
Maybe not enough for your liking, but we still did. I think Daniel Levy should do more. I think Joe Lewis, which I said the other night, is the most invisible owner in...
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
It's a bad thing, I think.
Why?
Because as an owner, I think if you really care about your football club, you should... Lead by example is the wrong word, but you should show that you care. And showing by your care is attending matches, being involved with the running of the club to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Having a voice. So sometimes it's good to speak out in the media. But you don't have to do an interview every day or with everybody. But I think it's good because you also set the direction for your football club.
Yeah.
Or you should. But I can't help thinking, before you give me your opinion, that Conte is also a bit crying. And it's never his fault, and it's always somebody else's fault. Not enough investment, the players, the fans, the other clubs in the Premier League, they spend too much, they're too strong, they're too good, blah, 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 and never really his responsibility.
When he says all that, though, do you think he genuinely believes it?
Why would he say it then?
Because he seems to say it near every transfer window.
He does, to be fair.
So then why does it matter most at that stage? And I think he knows... I don't think he's maximised this current Spurs side in terms of their potential. Yeah?
In the sense that what, they should be playing better than what they do?
I think they can be playing better. I think style of play can be whatever it is, but I think they can play better.
Yeah?
Yeah?
Yeah, I agree.
And to add to that, we want to talk about investment and being great and so on. Say Arsenal have invested, but say if Arsenal had the same amount of key players missing as Spurs did, who comes in? Are Arsenal going to be the same?
Yeah, no, that's a fair point.
You know what I mean? So from a squad standpoint, not every team is in a position whereby, like a Man City, where you can change your fullbacks, change your midfielders, like every week for City, it's Gundogan in or Bernardo Silva in.
Yeah.
Not every team has that. So to treat it like it's black and white, say they haven't had the investment like that, it does make me wonder, because say Mikel Arteta at this moment in time has fully maximised probably 13, 14 players within their squad. They're playing to their full potential.
Yeah.
And they are top of the tree right now. I think Spurs can be playing better. I think when you look at, say, Man United, who are on the rise now, their team from front to back isn't miles ahead of what Spurs is. When you look at Newcastle, they're not miles ahead, as we saw in the game against Arsenal.
Yeah.
Because, Arsenal would say they deserve to win that game. Newcastle feel they deserve something because they've played defensively well. Newcastle wasn't really end-to-end 60% possession in total football. So there are ways to do it. So I think when he speaks up, I don't know who he's talking to exactly, because if he needs to speak to the invisible owner that is Joe Lewis, then talk to him directly if you can.
Yeah.
But then if for a player, like if you were a player and you heard a manager say the best they can do is really fifth, like would you believe him? Because surely that's putting a lid on what you are. But as a player, in terms of teams that played exceptionally well throughout this season so far, I'd probably only mention Arsenal. Because Man City, they've shown flashes, but then they've shown weaknesses as well. So why would you believe that there are 4 teams who are miles ahead of you when those 4 teams haven't really done anything that's like...
But did he say it because he didn't want people to say, well, you're a bad manager because you're not making the most of the squad that you have?
People say it anyway. I think he's got really high standards, and this is one of the reasons why, like, for myself and others, like, I wouldn't want to be a manager because to stand on the sideline helpless, like, he could have worked on them from Monday through Friday on one particular thing. Then when Saturday comes and he concede again, you're just standing there thinking, like, why did they not listen? You know?
Fair. But then when he says before the Palace game, well, I need to accept that I'm building something here. I'm not here to win titles.
That's a lie.
You're a squad. You're his players.
That's a lie.
Wow,
that's
really?
such a lie. That's such a lie. I think there's a difference between, say, wanting to win the Premier League title and wanting to win a trophy. Because when the League Cup and the FA Cup, anything is possible on your run to get there. You might not play against a marquee team until the final stages. You might not play against a marquee team in general. Like you have, say, 6 games or whatever it is to win a cup competition. And you will start that tournament believing that you can do it. And why would you believe at any point that you can't? So when he says he's not there to do that, then Antonio Conte, I didn't have him down as being the team builder, generational builder that will take 4 or 5 years to develop a young squad and turn them into something else. Otherwise, it probably, I don't know. I don't dislike him, but I don't understand him. Because you know what I mean? Because he speaks some stuff, but then who's it for? Like, do the fans want to hear a manager that's in there say they can't finish better than 5th? Do the players want to hear it? Does Daniel Levy want to hear it? Does the ownership want to hear it? So who wants to hear it? Who's it for?
But I think that's his personality. I think he was the same in Italy. Remember last season, they lost to Burnley away in a shocking game, performance. And after that, he said, like, I'm not really sure I want to be here.
Yeah.
And they in a way, turned things round to finish top 4 and just beating Arsenal to it towards the last few games. Remember how it happened. So maybe when he moans like this and complains like this, it kind of has maybe some positive effect in it.
On who, though?
I don't know, maybe on the players. And I mean, maybe that performance at Palace is a reflection to what he said after the defeat against Villa was beneficial because they played better. I thought they pressed a bit better. They were more urgency to their game.
There's a sense of personal pride to that. And I would be interested to see what the relationship is like with the players, because maybe he really has them on board and maybe they're just not playing well at this moment in time.
Yeah.
Because what I would say is if a manager ever comes out and even hints that you as a group of players aren't good enough, you don't all of a sudden just start playing better, because at that point you've lost the connection with the manager. The best managers, say like an Arteta now, like others around, the players are playing well and the manager will say to them, you're doing a great job. You're being selected every week because you're fantastic with this. Maybe we could iron this out, but you are on fire. You are the guy. And someone made a good point the other day, I think it was Mark Schwarzer, like, whether we like it or not, everyone is a confidence player, but there's just different extents to it. Some people don't need the arm around the shoulder to play well, but when they get the arm around their shoulder, they're like unplayable. You know what I mean? So for him to be saying that in front of everyone, it does make you wonder. But Spurs, for me, they've got all the potential to be a really good side, but you do wonder, like, what does he want to achieve there? Because if he wanted to stay long term, surely sign a long term contract. Yeah,
because obviously it hasn't been the case yet.
Is he done at the end of the year?
Yeah.
Do you think he'll stay next year?
I don't. It will depend a lot. If they don't qualify for the Champions League, so they don't finish top 4.
You think that's the thing, the Champions League, that's going to be the thing that gets him over the line?
Yeah.
But even if they're 4th and 30 points off top.
But I think the Champions League brings you money to invest. And you say to your owner, and we go back to that, to Daniel Levy, who I think has made mistakes, and Joe Lewis even more. But if you Conte and you finish 4th, 3rd, 2nd, whatever they won't finish first. But you go and say, listen, we've qualified for the Champions League. But it was, again, very difficult. It was, again, tricky. We need more. We need this. We need that. And then you go again, you know.
I personally, and I could be wrong here, I don't see him being at Spurs in, say, 2 years' time. So what I would wonder is, say, if they do finish top 4 and they have a great end to the season and they get given money, what's Joe Lewis and what's Daniel Levy going to be like about bringing players very specific to this one manager who maybe you don't perceive as being exceptional?
Yeah, no, exactly. Anyway. But I don't think Conte is the answer. But I don't think Mourinho was the answer. I don't think Nuno was the answer. I mean, Poch was a bit different. But, you know, I think Daniel Levy has made mistakes in how he picked the managers they wanted. And Nuno was not first choice, of course. But still, like, get the right guy instead of just getting someone. And I don't think Conte was the answer either.
What one thing about this, yeah. So one of my friends is an agent, and he's got I can't name names too much, but he's got like an aspiring young centre back who's in the Premier League now, who's potentially going to be making the next step to like a big club.
Yeah.
And he said to me, at this moment in time, would you, if you was to transfer in January, would you rather send him to Man United or to Spurs? What would you say?
Oh, Man United every day. Imagine a young player with Ten Hag.
You think so? That's the thing. You'd go for the manager.
I mean, the dynamic is more positive at United
because in relation to the differences, and this is what sort of it makes you look at the clubs in a different manner. So, I thought probably maybe United because the manager's probably going to be there for longer. That's what it felt like in the moment. But then my friend countered it by saying, "Well, the infrastructure at Spurs is amazing. The stadium's amazing. The training ground's amazing. You know what I mean? Being in London and all that jazz." And when we looked at it, we thought even for as much as Spurs have potential, if Man United are ever really good again, you'll feel that impacts in the Premier League and globally.
Yeah, massively.
So you do wonder, like, how does Spurs counter that? You know, they've got potential.
Yeah.
But are they forever going to be the club with potential as opposed to the club that actually achieves something? But
then with potential, you have to build it up. And Conte is not the guy to build anything. This is not what he does. He wins. He wins when he's got a huge investment behind him, which hasn't really been the case in there. And I think that's why he might leave. That's why he's thinking like, this is not for me here. This is not what I do. Why did he come?
Nobody forced him to come. That's the thing. Nobody forced him to go to Spurs.
No, but maybe he thought, okay, maybe they're going to change now. Maybe maybe there'd be more investment so you can build quicker.
Yeah.
And achieve quicker. Then
to spin it all the way back around anyway, these next few years for me are the most important for Spurs in sort of my lifetime anyway, because you've got someone who's going to potentially be the highest goal scorer in Premier League history, who is going to give you probably another magnificent 3-4 years. But then after that, who knows what the situation is going to be. It's going to be a new Spurs.
No, for sure.
So it feels like even though you want to build for the future, there is an importance about now, because otherwise your biggest asset might not necessarily be the biggest asset going forward. And then once other teams say, you're having Haaland getting older and some of these young superstars getting older and coming into the Premier League, before you know it, that big asset all of a sudden is just one of many players that exists, as opposed to one of the guys now. The only guy who seems to be able to challenge Erling Haaland for being top scorer in the Premier League.
Yeah, I mean, they've got very special player in Harry Kane, which we knew before, but after what happened at the World Cup and the be like, how will he come back? How will he? I think he showed, apart from maybe the Villa game, which was a bad game for them overall. We mentioned that they play in the FA Cup this weekend, like everybody else, at home against Portsmouth, which you would expect them to win.
It stinks of 11 changes, though.
Yeah, it does. But I'm not even sure they have 11 players to change.
They'll find 11 from somewhere.
They'll find 11.
Yeah,
fair enough. 11. After that, though, it's Arsenal in the derby, again at home, and then City away. So for all the better that we saw against Palace in the second half, all this chat about where they are in terms of context and the relationship, Conte, the board, Kane, Son, all of that. Portsmouth, not so much, but certainly after that, the double-header against Arsenal and City. That's where we will find out a bit more what they're really made of, if there is progress, if they're on the right path, or if actually the Palace game was just... I
think that's key. It's a very good point that you've made, because in those two games, obviously, you don't want to look past the game, but we'll talk about the league. If they win those two games, they're getting ground on two teams who are above them. Yeah. If they lose both, then that gap just widens that little bit further. And they don't necessarily need to be trying to win the league. But in that same time, Newcastle have proven that they don't lose. They've lost one game all season. Man United are currently on fire. And, they'll play against Man City next week. But losing those two games, if they do it, I think that's a huge, huge setback. Because before you know it, at this stage, maybe Liverpool are better. Maybe Chelsea are better. And then they could go from being in fourth. Are they fourth now or fifth? Go from being fifth to being in seventh, and now being maybe 7-8 points away from being in fourth again. So those are some very, very big weeks for them.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.